Thank you, folks, and welcome. If you haven't been here in this session before, I'll quickly intro myself. I work as a global director of digital consumer products for AB InBev, the biggest beer company in the world, with brands like Corona, Stella Artois, Löf, Budweiser. We have 4 panelists who will be answering for or against, or maybe, I guess, if that's an option. I'll pass the baton to them to introduce themselves quickly.
Hi there, everyone. My name's Leah Hutchin, and I'm the founder and CEO of Appointed. We are a global platform powering online bookings for retailers, for healthcare brands, for all sorts of different companies, and we take visitors to an online site and convert them into either a real-world experience or a virtual experience.
Hi everyone, my name's Nick. I'm head of Europe at Vamp. If you just saw Grant's great presentation, then you'll know a little bit about us, but we are essentially an influencer marketing and content creation platform. Our approach to influencer marketing is very much one that is strategic, and we really kind of look at the full consumer funnel and how we can use essentially influencer marketing as a performance marketing channel.
Good afternoon. I'm Graham Fuchs from Knexus, which is a visual commerce platform which takes UGC, influencer, and brand content and automatically integrates it into e-commerce journeys to influence buying decisions.
Afternoon. My name's Nick. I'm the head of e-commerce at DragonflyAI. We are an AI tool developed over the past 10 years to allow brands to optimize their visual content at scale.
Thank you and welcome. So let's start with you, Nick. What do you think? Are we at peak digital commerce now?
So, I was thinking about this earlier. I don't think we have. I think from a personal standpoint, from a consumerist, and businesses need to be looking at this a bit more from a sustainability point of view. But I think from a business point of view and what we're doing with our AI and around attention is that I think over the past few years, brands have been focusing a lot at the bottom and the middle of the marketing funnel, and now with this whole attention craze happening, there's a lot of innovation happening at the top of the marketing funnel. And with post-pandemic, obviously, there's newer, smaller brands coming in, taking up market share. People aren't stopping buying things. The market is growing, and brands need more ROI tools to help maximize what they're doing. And so for that reason, I don't think that we're at peak e-commerce yet, but I think we should all be considering it as individuals and businesses.
What about, though, and I'm going to pick Graham on you next, what about all of these COVID time e-commerce darlings that are now going down the drain? Like, do you feel that there's a better category to be in or worse category to be in terms of digital commerce?
Well, first off, I don't agree with the proposition, so let's get that out there. Obviously, there was the rush of growth off the back of COVID, and now we're receding a little bit from that. So obviously that's accelerated, but I don't think that that means that we're finished and we've peaked and we're done, basically. Clearly, in terms of the on-site experience, and for me, I view it particularly from a content perspective, there's a lot of opportunity to provide validation, confidence, social proof through content in the buying journey to increase the amount of people that have a good experience and feel like they're actually ready to make a purchase. So plenty of headroom for growth there.
So you both are 4, I'm getting. Or, well, not, sorry, that's the other way around. So you think we still have a way to go in digital commerce. Leo and Nick, do you feel like we're there yet?
I think it really depends on the definition, because I think digital commerce, if we look at it as just pure e-commerce, coming, clicking on a website and buying there and then, I think whether we've reached peak, who knows, but I don't think it's as exciting as what is going on elsewhere. I think when we were in the pandemic, that was all we could do, really, and definitely there were innovations around that happened in some areas quite quickly. But I think, we got used to kind of just buying and somebody would come and deliver it and that was your whole experience. Whereas I think now, especially with the current economic climate, if we believe Rishi Sunak, it's all going to get a lot harder. So people are going to want every pound that they spend to give them the best experience. And it's not just about that good that lands on your doorstep. It's about how you've gotten there and kind of the different endorphin rushes that you can get getting there. So yeah, for me, okay, I think we probably have just with click and it comes. But I think there's so much more that's happening. So for Appointed, we power a lot of online booking experiences virtually in the metaverse. In real life, we take buyers who may make a small purchase online or may request a free sample online, and then they're converted into either an in-store visit or they might do a virtual shop in the metaverse. We work with brands like Charlotte Tilbury who are really innovating there. So yeah, for me, it's about kind of really doubling down on that experiential part of things, and I think there's so much more we can do there.
Nice. Nick, anything you want to add on this one?
Yeah, definitely. I think for us, obviously, as we're playing in the influencer space, social commerce is really kind of the area that we kind of have, I suppose, expertise in. And I think that, Vamp has been up and running since 2015, so we've seen the industry of influencer marketing evolve quite a lot over the last few years. And I think what's become really clear is that social commerce is really kind of comes down to three things. Partners, be that the social channels themselves, consumers, and creators. And what we do see now, and there's an interesting example from today actually, but what we're finding is that the success of social commerce, as well as the limitations of social commerce, are completely defined by the capabilities of the partners of the social media channels themselves. So as Instagram, TikTok, YouTube have become more shoppable, obviously brands can tap into that. There is still such a long way to go for those partners to actually get to a stage where they're actually fully integrated commercially with brands. The example that I just mentioned before was TikTok actually today announced that they...
I was just about to ask. Yeah.
TikTok have pulled the plug on their live shopping functionality in the US and Europe. Obviously, that live shopping functionality has been a huge success in Asia, and obviously cultural differences over in Europe and the US have meant that it's not as compatible for those types of consumers. So from an influencer point of view, when we are actually engaging with communities and micro-influencers and directly reaching that consumer in an extremely authentic way, it means that the channels themselves need to actually provide the functionalities in order for brands to sell their product.
And what are some of these examples? Because, TikTok, something was on my mind as well. We talked about metaverse. Any other examples you folks seen where digital commerce applications or innovations really work?
From an influencer point of view, yeah, I think what we found just from Vamp is that a lot of it actually comes back to actually the capabilities of the social channels themselves, like I just said. So a lot of the success that we're seeing from actual conversion and return on investment point actually comes from amplification within the channels themselves. So what we do actually is we dedicate a portion of the budget on a campaign to amplifying the influencer content within the Facebook ecosystem or the TikTok ecosystem. That allows us to be extremely targeted with the type of consumer that we reach, and it basically allows us to purchase impressions and engagements much more cost effectively than relying on an influencer's audience alone. So in that sense, again, it kind of ties back to the capabilities of the social channels.
I would definitely agree with that. For us, at Appointed, we have integrations with Facebook and Instagram, and being able to make a conversion to a booking on those platforms is so impactful from a real immediate point of view. And then you've got either a real world or a virtual experience that can convert and can really build a relationship with a client or with a customer. So yeah, definitely agree there.
Yeah, in our space where we are with Knexus, we see when brands are integrating their video content, their social posts, their blog articles, other content into buying journeys, personalizing it, and delivering it at the right moment in the buying journey, it really increases not just the conversion, but the overall e-commerce sales uplift, because there's just greater confidence and assurance for the consumer to go ahead and make a purchase.
Nick, anything you want to add? Not at this point. Yeah. Good.
Not as
good.
relevant.
Well, I guess kind of my next question is around, we're just barely out of COVID and into recession. So if you had to give a recommendation to brands, especially maybe more of the run-of-the-mill CPG brands, just starting on the digital commerce journey, what would be one recommendation as we go into recession, how to engage consumers?
Less is more, optimize more. I think brands spend so much money on advertorial, on e-commerce. and they have no way of measuring how that content is performing. So there's brands similar to Dragonfly who offer partners data to make informed decisions with their content. And I don't think anyone should make those decisions without having that data to back up whatever decision it is, and with whatever media content type it is. So that would be my advice.
I would say probably find cost-effective solutions. And I know that is quite a vague thing to say, but I think if you can find one solution that ticks multiple boxes, then you're obviously saving money and you're actually delivering more across whatever you need. So that may be the production of content that can service different channels at one point, as opposed to just getting advertorial in a magazine done and then having to try and repurpose that content elsewhere. I think finding solutions that are very digital first as well is incredibly important.
I think for me, it's about driving value and giving people the best experience that you can over their customer journey and building a real relationship where you get to know them, you get to understand what makes them tick, you deliver as many endorphin hits as you can in that customer journey, and you really build loyalty. And I think that's going to be what makes great brands stand out during this challenging time.
I agree on the optimizing. So first thing would be, if you've got traffic, if you've got shoppers on your site, you need to do a better job, be more effective with them, get them to spend money and not leave you and go and find other places. So that's number one. And the second thing that I would say is automate as well, where you can on site, so that you can be efficient as a brand and achieve more without necessarily having to increase your costs.
Thank you, Lee. I'm going to ask you, though, you mentioned, I guess my question is, how do we make sure that we know our consumers and we build the relationships, but it's still cost effective for brands? And anybody else who wants to chime in, obviously.
Yeah, I think it's a really great question. And I think it's different for every brand and how you engage with your customers. There's obviously great technology out there around personalization. For us, one of the things that we work really closely with our brands on is just serving up different conversion points and really testing and learning so that you can do that very cost effectively. You can offer kind of different types of service and then try and take kind of learnings at each point. So if you know somebody, especially during COVID, where we were seeing some people were super happy to carry on going in store, they knew they needed to book and they were happy to do that, whereas other people really kind of shied away from that, only wanted to do virtual, wanted to do those e-commerce transactions, but wanted to do it in a way that they felt controlled and were kind of safe at home. So I think it is just serving up as many options as you can, delivering them as efficiently as possible. For us, that can be somebody who is offering a service in store, but also can take a virtual call if that's how their time is booked. So yeah, just thinking about really being as creative with your resources as possible. And obviously, I'm going to say this, but because if something's booked ahead of time, you can be really efficient with your resources. You can really allow the demand to dictate how many people you have in store that day or how many people you have in a dark store or whatever that looks like. So yeah, it's just about really honing and being as efficient and creative as we can be, I guess.
Any other thoughts on how to know your consumer, know your digital consumer, but do it with less money as brands go into recession as well?
I think we found it quite hard to hear the first question that you asked. We couldn't hear the question.
Yeah, go ahead.
No.
You couldn't hear the question. How do I know my digital consumer while also being very efficient with my money as a brand? Tough one. Spend more money.
Well,
Don't be afraid, test and learn. I think that's really the only way to do it. So if you've got a small budget, you can allocate that budget to different customer segments, trial it. I think a lot of the time brands are quite hesitant, especially if they are budget poor. But I think you really just need to dive into it really to understand. Probably easier said than done, but...
I would say two things. First of all, develop your first-party data strategy, which is a pretty obvious one. But critically, when you're developing that, don't get obsessed with what great looks like. So test early. When you start getting data, start to put it to use and see what it does for you, rather than trying to collect all the data before you start that testing.
Got it. So we're getting to, you wanted to add something, Lee?
I was just going to say, also, like, getting really creative about your touch points and converting them. So, for example, if you are delivering an e-commerce sale, putting QR codes in there to bring people back into another part of your funnel. I think, like, necessity is the mother of invention, isn't it? And I really expect to see some really exciting things come out of this as brands do experiment and test and learn.
Got it. Well, thank you, folks. We're getting to the end of it. So I guess the summary is try small, test and learn, learn who your customer is in your digital channels, and what was the other one? Be creative around your channels and how they interact with each other. I'm going to put it to the audience, back to our debate question. So this house believes that we have reached peak digital commerce. All those in favor that we did, you raise your hand. Not a single, well, one person. Okay, good. I'll take it as the motion has failed, and we're still a long way to see how the digital commerce evolves. So thank you so much for being with us today, and good luck.
Cheers.